What's going on, everybody? Welcome to After Prison Show. And today I want to talk to you guys about a story that a lot of people have been reaching out to me, telling me I really need to address this. Now, even prior to people reaching out to me about this, I had seen this. I definitely keep up with what's going on inside of the prisons. And in terms of prison news, folks, this is probably one of the biggest stories ever. And what this story is about this individual right here, 34-year-old Scott Whitney, down in Florida serving time for drug trafficking charges. And how this individual used a contraband cell phone to not only document what was taking place inside of the prisons, this man legitimately filmed what they're referring to as a documentary, filmed by a prisoner with a contraband cell phone while in prison. And what this man was able to capture in this documentary that he was filming, which is basically just him filming all of these crazy different things that were taking place in the prison, was exactly that. All sorts of crazy things that were taking place inside of prisons down in Florida, things that are probably still happening right now to this very day. And basically going as far as to expose the Florida Department of Corrections. Now, when I first ran across this story, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I really didn't think this was too smart of an idea. Because if you get caught with a phone while you're in prison, a contraband cell phone, you're already looking at the loss of good time, possibly going to isolation, if not getting charged with additional charges, street charges that could carry even more time. And again, when I first ran across this story, I thought that this was kind of dumb because I was thinking that this man actually got released and then went ahead and exposed Florida prisons for what they are. And we're going to be talking about what exactly this guy was able to showcase in this documentary he filmed in this video. But not only was he showcasing all of this stuff that was taking place in the prison, I mean, he puts himself completely out there for who he is. And I'm thinking this guy had gotten released and he's now put a huge target on his back in terms of them trying to get this guy either locked back up or put back up inside of the prisons. I really didn't think that this was too smart of an idea. And I guess my biggest rationale for that was the fact that I thought this guy had gotten released. But folks, I don't know where I got that from because that couldn't be the farthest thing from the truth. This 34-year-old man, Scott Whitney, who was locked up for drug trafficking charges, folks, he is still incarcerated right now. And his release date is not until 2040. This man still has like 22 years left. And if he was to get released in 2040, he would be 55 years old. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to say about that right there. First of all, this man's release date is not until 2040 for drug trafficking charges. I'm going to give you my honest opinion. I don't think this dude snitched at all. This dude ended up with like at least 25 years. He got football numbers. He got smoked up inside the courtroom. And just judging from the amount of time that this man is serving, I truly believe this man kept it a stack up in the courtroom and kept it absolutely gangster. And did not do any type of Tekashi 6ix9ine testifying against the entire world in an effort to get you a lesser prison sentence. You know, real quick, just mentioning Tekashi 6ix9ine, did I read something? I had to have been reading this incorrectly. Did I read that this dude just got him a $10 million record deal from prison? Not only that, there's individuals who are trying to film the Tekashi 6ix9ine documentary. I mean, boy, just like Tekashi telling on everybody seems to be trying to clout chase off of this dude, including me. I will be the first to admit it. But I truly believe this Scott Whitney dude, he didn't do no cooperating. When you get football numbers and you get smoked up inside of the courtroom, even if you did cooperate, nobody's going to be thinking that you did. Because when people hear that you got you a linebacker number or a running back's number, oh, you ain't do no cooperating. Nah, not with no 25 years you didn't. And something else that just emphasizes the gangsterness of this dude, Scott Whitney, serving football numbers down there in Florida, filming a documentary from the prison. This dude seems to give zero about getting caught or getting in trouble for attempting and doing just that, exposing prisons and what those prisons are like down there in the Sunshine State. Florida is the Sunshine State, right? Oh, and real quick, just to go ahead and throw this in here, if you're wondering, like, you know, what the repercussions would be for this individual getting caught because he put himself completely out there doing this, who he was, leaked this to the Miami Herald, I think was the first place that got hands on this, and then the entire nation got their hands on this. This story actually made national news. If you're wondering, you know, what the repercussions were or what's happened to Scott Whitney since all of this exposure to Florida prisons has been exposed, this guy is actually in solitary confinement right now. They have buried this dude up underneath the prison and probably going as far as to cut off any and all communication and access to the outside world for this guy. I can guarantee you one thing. Florida prisons, Florida Department of Corrections, they ain't happy with old Scott Whitney right now. Now again, like I said, the story has gained national attention, and we're just going to go with this one story right here where the headline is pretty much the same as all sorts of other headlines that says, an inmate secretly recorded film shows the gruesome reality of life in prison. You know, I just think to myself, like, what this guy's end game with this really was. He could have done so much with this. And you know, he really didn't have to put himself all the way out there. He could have, like, remained anonymous to some degree. Tied a shirt around his face. He didn't have to say who he really was. But this dude, again, just gave zero at all. At least that's what it seems. You know, this guy might actually go down as a hero in the prison system if this leads to major changes taking place down there in Florida Department of Correction. He's either going to go down as an absolute hero, or he's going to be like so much other stuff that makes the news, forgotten in like a week or two and still sitting in isolation because they ain't done making an example out of this dude. This dude could end up spending years in isolation for what he's done here. And I just wonder to myself, in the end, will it all be worth it? I know I've read that there's an investigation that's been sparked because of this video, but you know, there's things that get leaked from prisons all the time. Videos, pictures, where investigations end up getting sparked because of those things. But does real change ever actually happen because of those things? I mean, I'm legitimately asking that question. I'm not trying to make that a rhetorical question, even though it kind of is. You know, for the sake of Scott Whitney, whose release date is not until 2040, I truly hope that change comes because of what he's done. The story goes on to say that on September 19th, Jordan Gailey Nixon, a prison reform advocate and former inmate, uploaded 2 minutes of Whitney's footage to YouTube. Since then, prison officials have housed Whitney in isolation if he's released from solitary confinement, and notice how they say if. This man's release date's not till 2040. Could he potentially spend the next 22 years in solitary confinement? If Whitney is released from solitary confinement, whose drug trafficking sentence ends in 2040, this guy has promised to continue filming. Well, he's going to first have to get him another contraband cell phone, which seems like it's really not that hard to get these days. You know, back when I was in prison, dudes was a lot more on the low with the phones. And phones were a lot harder to get. I've been home from prison now for 4 years. Actually, yesterday just marked 4 years exactly I've been released from prison. But back when I was serving my 7 years, phones were not that easy to get your hands on. If you really wanted one and you had the $300+ it was going to take you to be able to purchase that phone, you probably could find one. But it seems cell phones in prison are a hell of a lot more common and easily attainable nowadays than 4 years ago. And you know, real quick, just to throw this in here as well, have you ever wondered like why cell phones are contraband and definitely not allowed in prisons? Not only are they not allowed, they're one of the worst possible things that you can get caught with while serving time. And the biggest reason why they consider them one of the worst things is because they consider cell phones in prison a security threat. You can't monitor what prisoners are talking about on a cell phone versus what they can talk about on that landline that is absolutely getting recorded. Not only is it getting recorded, sometimes you can actually hear people who are listening in on your conversation. And you know, that's about the most uncomfortable thing in the world, especially when you engage in some sort of a freaky conversation with your prison pen pal. That's not very good at all. When you can hear somebody breathing in the background and you know it's not who you talking to and it's not you neither. Oh yeah, you would do what though? You would stick your big toe where? Oh God, girl. What did you eat for lunch today? But you know, I just gotta be honest with you. You get used to it. You get used to a lot of things actually when you're serving time. And when you think about the fact that they cannot monitor these phone calls, all sorts of stuff could be taking place on those calls, on those contraband cell phone calls. Prisons are very paranoid. They don't know if you're orchestrating some sort of an escape attempt or if you're trying to get the pack smuggled in or potato gun launched over the fence in a Nerf ball. They don't know if you could potentially be planning some sort of an attack on an officer who didn't give you the adequate amount of rec time last Thursday. There's a lot of things that prisons worry about prisoners being able to do with a contraband cell phone. And not only those things that we just mentioned right there, but also the potential of going Facebook Live or doing exactly what this dude Scott Whitney did down in Florida, exposing the entire prison operation and system, where it basically seems like the prison system gives zero about the prisoner. But you know, with or without this documentary this dude filmed from the prisons, I'm pretty sure people already realized that. Prisons do not care about you when you're serving time. And the conditions, they ain't gonna be that good. Such as what Scott Whitney exposed in his prison documentary. So folks, let's now take some time and look at some of these things that Scott, aka the prison Steven Spielberg, exposed in his prison documentary, Expose. Now real quick as we get into this, you know, the only video that I've seen about this is what the news has showcased. I'm wondering, is there like a longer uncut version of this video? And if there is so and you guys have run across it, please comment down below where I can see that video at. But we're gonna go with the video that I'm seeing from the news. And so one of the first things that is shown in this video, again, I truly believe like this is an edited version of the entirety of what this guy filmed, but one of the first things they show is this Bible where this guy has actually cutting out the shape in the pages where the cell phone can fit and actually has put in a peephole through the O in holy in an effort for this guy to be able to walk around with his secret recording device and be able to capture what's taking place inside of the prison. And I wondered to myself if this actually worked. You know, I wondered, did this guy Scott walk around with this Bible and that was a part of the way how he was able to film so much of what he did film inside of the prison? Because I can tell you this right now. Cutting out the pages in a book or a magazine in an effort to try to hide something in there is not exactly the greatest hiding spot in prison, especially in terms of a prison shakedown. Folks, them guards is flipping through every single one of your books and magazines. At least most guards are. Now you do run the risk and the possibility of getting you a lazy guard who just ain't got time for that. But I'm gonna go out on a limb and say probably something like 75% of the guards, maybe even 80, 85, maybe even 90% of the guards, they're gonna do their job to the fullest when it comes to them prison shakedowns, and you can guarantee, you can bet your bottom dollar, they flipping through the pages in them books, including your Bible. So I don't really think that that's all that great of a hiding place. But then again, we're talking about down in Florida, a prison system that I really don't know too much about. Maybe the guards down there are lazy. I know there would be a scene in this documentary this guy Scott would show. It was at nighttime when the guards were doing their rounds after lockdown. All the lights were off, and he basically shows the guard just walking by, not even flashing the flashlight inside of the cell in an effort to check and see if prisoners are okay. Ain't nobody, I don't want to say nothing crazy, but that's what they're supposed to do. And I'm gonna be honest, I've seen that plenty of times up here in the state of Virginia. You will see guards who will do rounds who will not look in the cell. But good on this dude for being able to showcase that, because that's actually something pretty powerful to think about. You know, them guards, sometimes when they doing their rounds, they just trying to hurry up and get through them. That way they can write it down in their little book. Did the rounds. Done. Now I can get back to playing Raid Shadow Legends on my phone. Another thing that I was completely intrigued by and something that I don't know anything about, I'll be the first to admit it, I never had a cell phone while I was in prison, but they don't even showcase it that much in this little clip that the Miami Herald has, where this guy Scott has actually made a battery pack. The only thing I've ever seen a battery pack used for is for running a tattoo machine, but this guy has actually made a battery pack in an effort to be able to charge the battery on his cell phone. And I think that that is absolutely just as ingenious as it gets right there. He goes on to showcase a lot of fights and violence up inside of the prisons, a lot of weapons as well, and also one thing that we've talked about here before on After Prison Show, how to make you a bulletproof vest in prison. And this guy has actually gone to the absolute extremes with his. We've talked about basically saran wrapping magazines to your front and to your back. This guy has actually taken the mattress and has sewn the mattress into a vest with pockets and sleeves where books can actually be slid down into that. And that right there, boy, I'm trying to tell you, they're doing it big down there in Florida. But then again, they probably have to, because he does showcase quite a bit of violence and also weapons as well. He also showcases how to make the pruno in the prison, and again, this video is so cut up, I'd like to see this thing in its entirety. I mean, this guy basically has After Prison Show jumping from the prison. This guy needs to go ahead and start himself his own YouTube channel once he gets released from the hole, and also figures out a way to get him that phone again. But just to mention this as well, this also comes to mind. You know, this guy talks about when he does get released from isolation, he's gonna continue to film. I can guarantee you for the entirety and the remainder of the time this guy serves in prison, this dude is gonna have the biggest target on his back for being the exposer, the infiltrator, the informant. I hate to use that word, but it kind of fits. Y'all, they are going to be searching this dude 24/7. They ain't never going to let this dude breathe. So for him to continue doing what he was doing, I honestly don't feel like that's going to be easy, if possible, at all. My God, look at all of that devil's lettuce this man is showcasing in this video. This man is doing it huge up in the prison. Folks, just ask yourself this. I don't know what that is. Those are blunts right there. We're not even talking about Pinner J's. If you broke down each one of those individual single-serving amounts of the devil's lettuce, you could probably break that down to at least 3 or 4, maybe even 5 Pinner J's, where this guy could get easily maybe $5, maybe $7 a piece for those. But then again, it all depends on how flooded that prison is. If the devil's lettuce is flooded up inside of the prison, then Pinner J's could be going for $2 or $3. But I know here in the state of Virginia, the devil's lettuce is not something easily attainable. It's there, but it's far and few between, and the price is going to be high. For a Pinner J, we're talking about something almost as thin as a toothpick. You're talking about $5 to $8 just for that right there. Man, it looks like a kingpin in there. He got locked up for drug trafficking charges, and it looks like he's trafficking the devil's lettuce all up inside the prison right here. Now, there's one final thing that I want to talk about that this guy filmed, and he also filmed quite a bit about this particular thing, and that is the K2, the synthetic marijuana. And he shows a ton of prisoners who are slumped over, who are getting taken out on stretchers and on gurneys. He even talks about people are dying from this, and he refers to prisoners who are having a bad reaction to this as twacking out. Folks, I have definitely seen the twack out here in the state of Virginia. It was toward the end of my prison sentence when the synthetic marijuana was first starting to make its way up inside of the prison. And it was at the very last prison I was at. But the crazy thing about it was that it was a lot of bad batches that were making their way inside of the prisons. And you would definitely see dudes who were doing just what this dude refers to as twacking out. Folks, I'll share a story with you guys real quick. I've talked about this in the past. I'll never forget this one young guy who was sentenced to this prison, because these young kids would end up getting sentenced to this if they completed the program at the prison. They could go home. And this kid wasn't really rocking with the program too much at all. He was a kid that got in a little bit of trouble here and there. He was even involved in a gang, but that's neither here nor there. I'll never forget this one day where this kid stood up and he was ready to change his ways. He got up in front of everybody during one of these groups and he talked about how he realized he had been doing so much wrong and he wanted to just do the right thing. That way he could get through this program and go home to his family. And when this kid talked about this, he received like a standing ovation. Bravo! Bravo, yeah, man, yeah. It's about damn time you realize you need to change. It was a very powerful moment up in the prison. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. I mean, to see a young man who realized, especially a young dude, because young dudes rarely ever realize they need to change their ways. A lot of them dudes stuck on that little pistol starter gangster for life, TTG, trained to go lifestyle, and they ain't really trying to do no changing. In fact, a lot of young guys, and myself included when I was young, will oftentimes say, I ain't worried about doing no changing. I got another bit in me, which means that, you know, I'm young enough to be able to come back to prison if that's what it takes. But until then, I'm going to attempt to go out there and try to get that money. Try to get me that pack, that starter pack. Try to start right up my own little entrepreneurship out there, my own little business that never works out. We're talking the illegal business. But it was a powerful moment when this young man stood up and talked about he was ready to change his ways. And folks, all of that was negated no more than about an hour later. It was rec time, and I will never forget seeing all of these guards running out onto the rec yard, right out the back door, where this young man who had just talked so powerfully about wanting to change his ways was getting cuffed up and hogtied. And what I would hear is that he had just gotten beat up. I'm talking about beat up by one guard. And the reason he got beat up by that one guard was because he attempted to fight that guard. But prior to attempting to fight that guard, this dude would end up twacking out. He would partake in some of that bad spice, have an absolutely negative reaction to that, and begin, and this is what they told me happened. He would begin quacking like a duck in an aggressive manner at this correctional officer who was asking him, what the hell is wrong with you? Quack, 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 quack. Dude twacked out, quacking like a duck, and ended up, I guess, becoming a little too aggressive for this officer. This officer put hands all over him, put the bung bung on him. Bung bung. Ain't no quacking like a duck, we in prison. This ain't Animal Planet. They hog-tied him and they sent him away. sent him off to a higher level prison, and he would end up getting charged with assaulting a correctional officer. The man had his arms folded up like he was a duck, but still got that charge and ended up with more time because of some bad spice in the twack out. Folks, as we wrap this up, I want to ask all of you, what do you think about this video that this guy, Scott Whitley, filmed? Do you think that it was a smart thing to do? He exposed a lot of, how horrendous the prisons are with mold and the food. Do you think that changes will come because of this expose? Do you think that it was a good idea for him to do this? How long do you think this guy is going to serve in isolation? I know I just asked you guys a ton of questions right there, and I'll wrap this up with my own personal opinion. I don't think that this was the smartest idea, and if this guy was going to do what he did, he should have tried to remain anonymous with this, because who knows how long this guy is going to remain in segregation. He could spend years down there. But for what it's worth, I truly hope that in the end, it was worth it. And I truly hope that because of this documentary this prisoner filmed while serving time in prison, that some sort of real change takes place in the prison, but the chances of that happening are not very good. This is a story that will probably, and I hope this is not the case, this is a story that will probably be forgotten about in a week or two. And in the time that this is forgotten, this man will still be in isolation. I commend this dude for keeping it G, for keeping it a stack, for keeping it gangster. He's got 20 plus years left to serve in prison. This is a guy who I don't think snitched while facing these drug trafficking charges. So for that, this dude gets a ton of respect. And also for the fact that this man tried to expose these prisons. I in some way respect that as well. But again, I honestly don't know what, if anything, is going to come from what this dude did. And all I can say is I wish this dude nothing but success, and I hope that he gets through the rest of his time the best possible way that he can. If he gets released in 2040, he'll be 55 years old, and that's just a crazy thing to think about. It's pretty obvious this dude feels like he ain't got nothing to lose as it is. So on that note, I can definitely understand why this dude did what he did. Hey, look, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did so, please leave a like and a comment letting me know exactly what you thought about this. And as always, until next time, enjoy life, the free world. Never take a moment for granted, and make the most of every day. Peace!